as Lassi said, I'm Justus Hämäläinen, and I work for Reaktor. I work as a growth hacker. Basically, that means that I'm a software developer that wants to make good business. And personally, like one of those things that I want to do is find out how to make great services and how you can make services so good that you could charge money for the users to use them. And I have been with Elisa for 2.5 years. I've been working with the kauppa.saunalahti.fi. It's a customer web shop that Elisa has. And for the latest 1.5 years, I've been working in something called Elisa Kasvutiimi. And as Lassi said, we won the Blue Arrow Awards Best Performing Team Award last spring. And one thing is that I liked a lot is that our methods description was something like this: post-agile driven experiments with spray of champagne. So we try to make sure that our team has a single purpose. We work to make the e-commerce experience of Elisa, customer-facing webshop, better. And it means that we don't have a backlog or predefined stuff that we should work on. We can choose what we work on within the team, facing a minimal external pressure about what we should do. Only thing is that we should improve the sales and the customer experience of the web shop. Make sure that the customers that we get stick with our shop. About our team is that we can do end-to-end functionality, so it's cross-functional. We have all of those persons that we need to generate an idea, test it, and get it to production, and that's really important. And one thing is that even though we are self-contained team, we are trying to work a lot with different departments. We work people from marketing to product management to the development teams so that we could maximize the ideas that we can get and maximize the value that we can bring. I'm going to talk about designing in general, and I see that there are two problems with designing today, or when we are creating new designs. And this is especially if you have a product that is already established. So you have a product that has users and has proven that it works. So the first problem that I think is that we make big changes. We change a lot of different things simultaneously. And that means that we cannot separate the effects of those changes. We might change something that has a really good positive effect in our end goals, but in the same time we change things that have a negative effect. And we can really know that well, we don't know what are the parts that are good for the service and the parts that are bad for the service. Another thing is that feedback rarely affects the viability of a feature. So when you are developing something or designing something, it's often that when it gets to production and touches real users in the real environment, it's point of no return. Anymore you cannot say that this feature doesn't work, let's take it away. And that's a really big problem. Because I think the only way to create great services is to get it in the hands of users, real users in a real environment, and then getting feedback from them and incorporating that in the design. And that's the process that we should be doing. We should be trying to get stuff out to the user's hand and then the feedback back to the feature that we were building. How many designers or people that are designing products are here? Okay, great. How many of you get something in production this week or last week? Did you get something in production? Well, in last 2 weeks. Yeah. At least some of you. How many of you removed something or killed a feature during this month? Yeah. So I'm going to show you a generic service creation process, or how I see that often it becomes when you have an agile team in a generic service. So of course, I don't know, do you do, but you have user stories or epics. You have some kind of backlog that you take stuff out, prioritize backlog, and then you start doing it. Well, you take a user story, you start designing it. You have some kind of design, then you go out and get feedback for that design. It might be your colleagues, it might be a study, usability study. You might invite real users to test it in your location. But after a few rounds of those that you make a change in your design, you get some feedback, you make a change, you get some feedback, your design is ready. And now that design goes into the development, and after that, it's released. And this is the first part that designs touch real users in the real environment. And this is the point where you should try to get some kind of feedback back into the feature that was just released. But I think really often, I don't know, is this something that happens to you, but because you are busy, there are so much things in backlog, you just start doing a second feature and you start implementing it. How many has done this? So that, yeah. And I think that's one of those like problems with designing that when we finally get it in the hands of real users, we don't really have time to get feedback to incorporate in the design. We do something that I call experimentation. It's a different kind of process how we generate stuff. So we have two ideas or user stories, things that we want to do. It might be that we want to know, does recommendations work for this device? Should we change how our product listing works? Should we change how we show information in the product pages? So we start with an idea, a user story. We start designing it. Basically, we make a guess. We guess something. This is something that we do, like we might take inspiration from other services. We might talk it within the team and think what we should do, but the main thing is we try to be really fast, 1 or 2 days. After that, our first guess design is ready. Next really important thing is that we talk within our team about metrics. How can we prove that this feature is a good feature and drives our goals? How this makes the e-commerce experience better? We think that what are the conversions we should meter? How we should segment this? Is there something that we should take into account? After that discussion, we devise a test, and if we make a change in the design that is already there, we are redesigning something, it's really often an A/B test. But well, after we have implemented the test, I don't know, does everybody know how A/B testing works? So yeah, basically you have 2 variations. In other variations you show the original version, and for the half of you users you show the new design. But this is the point that our designs touch real users. Then we let the test run. It can take something from a week to a month, depending about what we are testing and what we want to find out. But then we take feedback from those users. It means the analytics that we have gathered during that test. It means interviewing the users. It means that we talk within our team, is there some kind of problem that we didn't anticipate? Is there something that we should do? Because it might be that we haven't segmented it all, and then we notice that mobile users and desktop users have totally different way of interacting with this design. So we have to now think that did we basically mess something up? And next part is that we think, is this something that we should continue to work with or work on? If it seems that this feature, whatever we do, if we don't believe that this can generate anything that helps with our end goal of making the e-commerce better, making the user experience better, and making the sales go up, we stop. We stop doing it because it's a wasted effort, and we want to minimize time we are doing features that don't affect in the end goals, because then we have more time doing those that affect. But it might be that it needs just another iteration. Maybe we didn't set up metrics correctly. Maybe there's something that we missed. Maybe there's a really simple thing that we should fix in the design and test again. Then we basically come back to the moment that we start designing. We are doing an iterative process. So we get feedback, we refine our design, we talk about the metrics, are they correct, what we should change, we devise the test, we let it run, it touches real users in a real environment, and after that, we again collect the feedback and choose, do we continue? And this is something that we do as long as we need and as long as we think that the feature benefits from those iterations. After that, we can just implement it in production and release it. And then again, take a new idea and start working with that. And this is really important that your system or your process has a point where you can choose, do we still continue on working with this? Because I have noticed that about 60% of our ideas just don't affect anything. They are basically wasted effort. That's something that you just stop working as soon as possible. And that's something that's why you should have in your process a point where you should know that, hey, I'll stop working with this. This doesn't bring me the results I want. And another thing is that all of our ideas begin so that we think they are good. But not all of them are. We have done multiple tests that have shown negative effects. So they, especially when you are doing a web shop, you don't want to do features that lower your sales. It's like contradicting the whole point of having one, or having a web shop. So we want to make sure that we do only the features that affect positively to our end goals. So my time is going to be up soon, so I'll show you the takeaways. So if you wake up now, what you can say that you learned from this talk. So one thing is that you should try to release as soon as possible to real users. It can be A/B testing or any kind of testing. It can be a hack. It can be anything you can think of. But try to minimize the time that you are having stuff away from the real users in the real environment. And make sure that your process takes into account that feedback that you generate from those real users. It can be interviews. It can be analytics or behavior analytics. It can be almost anything, but just make sure that you have, like you go through the data that you generated with those tests. And kill features as soon as possible. It's really important because then you minimize the time you spend doing stuff that doesn't affect anything. And you have time to do more things. And of course, the final thing is that when you have a big change, and of course you cannot do things in the like just incremental small changes. But if you have a big change or big different world that you want to move your current state to, think how you could cut it down so you could measure each step going forward towards that world. Because then you can again see as soon as possible, is it really so effective that you think? And about those things that I've learned about service creation is that nobody knows how to create great services. Because you know only after the fact you have that this works. Especially with games, you basically have an idea, then something starts to stick. It's the same thing with every other product. You know that this works, you don't know beforehand what parts made it work. So you need just guess and test. And that's something that is a lot easier than trying to build the best product there is. It's just start guessing and testing and seeing how things go. And that's why when we discussed yesterday within our team about this talk, and I showed we came up with a principle that you can try to remember when you go back to work. And you can use this principle when you start working. It's called cheat up principle. Cheat up. So the thing is, you need to guess, you need to test, and then you need to use the best from that. Thank you. This is everything I'm saying.